Alright, if you haven't watched the part 1 of this video where I talked about all the graded cards that sold on Heritage Auctions, I'll link that right here. But this video is going to be covering all of the sealed product. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first item that we're going to talk about is the Starter Deck Kaiba First Edition North American. This recently closed for $3,125. Now at its peak, this deck reached almost $10,000, believe it or not. I know somebody myself who picked one up for $10,000. That is almost like a 65% drop. That is actually insane just how much value this deck has lost. However, in my opinion, I think that this is the most nostalgic item for most Yu-Gi-Oh collectors. There is really nothing that comes close to Starter Deck Kaiba First Edition. And in my opinion, I think that now it's heading towards bargain territory. I mean, how much lower can it go? Could we see $2,000 for the deck? Well, like I always say, I have 2 balls and none of them are crystals, so I don't know the future. To me, it just seems like having seen a $10,000 price tag for this, people are willing to pay $10,000 if they feel like the market will support it. I mean, $3,000, it just seems like a bargain to me. Next up is LOB First Edition Booster Box. This sold for $18,000 flat, and this box peaked during the hype at around $50,000. I sold 2 of them at $50,000. That is a huge drop for this box, and in my opinion, I think it's in the territory of rock bottom. Could I see this fall to $15,000? Yes, I can. I think the bottom, like the worst case scenario that I can see this box fall to is around $12,000. But I think that that would be kind of like apocalypse level. I think a wavy box would get a 10 to 20% premium, which would make it fall at around the $20,000 to $21,000 mark. Next up is 2 Metal Raider boxes. I'm not a fan of listing 2 of the same product at the same time, and that's why I don't really use auction houses, but it is what it is. One sold for $3,600 and one sold for $4,000. Could it be that they cannibalize each other? It might be so. This box goes for around $5,000, but it peaked at around $12,000 in mid-2020. So it's definitely fallen from grace. Some really good things about this box is that the cards inside are very easy to grade, so if you decide to open them, you have very high chances at 10. The other problem is that there are a lot of this box out there, and because of that, it's always prone to availability on the market. Next up is 2 Magic Ruler boxes. They both sold for $2,300 each. Now again, I do think that these 2 cannibalize each other. This box usually goes for around $3,000, and I think at $3,000 it's a little bit more fair for how iconic it is, but they did sell for $2,300. I think that's pretty much like $100 a pack, which is a pretty decent price. First edition Pharaoh Servant 24-pack box also sold for $2,300, and again, I think it's about the same level as Magic Ruler in terms of iconicness, and it's actually the same as Magic Ruler in terms of availability. There's always usually 1 or 2 boxes available. Legacy of Darkness First Edition box sold for $1,800. I think, in my opinion, that is pretty fair. Could I see this going down lower? I can see it going down lower. I can see it hitting that $1,400 mark for the box. It's just not as iconic. It has 2 massive secret rares, but other than that, it's not very well loved for the other ultras and the super rares. It is a damn shame because the artwork on those cards is fantastic, but it seems that the market doesn't really like Legacy of Darkness as much as the other ones. Pharaonic Guardian sold for $2,000, which is absolutely mind-boggling because that set is less loved than the LOD. Even the secret rares in that set are not as iconic as LOD, so I'm not sure why it fetched a bigger premium than the Legacy of Darkness, but it did. It got $2,000, and in my opinion, I think that $1,800 to $2,000 mark for these vintage boxes is just about fair. Now, Dark Crisis sold for $2,600, and that box is significantly rarer than the other ones that I mentioned. I mean, I think it's rarer than Metal Raiders, for example. It really doesn't pop up for sale very often, so it fetched a bigger premium than the other boxes, and that's understandable. It doesn't have as many hits as the other boxes. It's much more rare, and because of that, I think rarity will beat out just how many hits you have. Next up is Ancient Sanctuary. This sold for $1,050. I sold one for $1,000 myself, so it's pretty much market price. I think it's fair. I can definitely see it staying at $1,000 for a very long time. Soul of the Duelist sold for $1,500. Now this box has a massive hit inside. The problem is that massive hit is a massive hit because it's massively rare. Okay, Horus level 8 is a huge card. It will pretty much pay for the box itself, but it's so damn hard to pull that it does keep people away. However, this box is super iconic. It's the start of the GX era, and it has like amazing ultimate rares inside. So I think $1,500 is a little bit cheap in my opinion for what the box is. Next up is Lost Millennium. This sold for $1,750. I think in my opinion that's kind of cheap. I think that this box should go for around the $2,000 to $2,400 mark. There's just way too many hits in here. Wing Karibo, Thunder Giant, Flame Wingman, Ancient Gear Golem, Brain Control. There's just so many nice cards in this that you can hit on, and in my opinion I think that it's quite undervalued. It is important to note that this box is hobby, and if you don't know the difference between hobby and retail, I highly recommend this video right here. It goes very in depth into the nuances of the hobby retail dynamic. Next up is a much rarer box. This is Shadow of Infinity first edition. This sold for $2,650. I think that this box is quite undervalued for just how rare it is. This box is very difficult to find. It doesn't really pop up for sale very often. So the fact that it went under $3,000 is quite cheap in my opinion. I think that this is a great box to have. It has so many hits. It has the 3 Sacred Beasts, Cyber Proto Dragon, Cyber Barrier Dragon, Cyber Laser Dragon. It has Treeborn Frog. I mean, this set is super iconic. In my opinion, I think that this box is quite undervalued at $2,600, and I think it's a great pickup if you were the one who won it. Next up is Enemy of Justice. This box just sold for $850. Now we're getting into the super cheap territory. Now this box doesn't have too many hits, but when it hits, it really hits. Shining Phoenix Enforcer is one of the lowest population PSA 10s in all of the GX era. It's actually very easy to grade. The problem is it's very damn hard to pull. So at $800, I think it's a very good bargain for you to try and chase down that card. I think people are paying like $3,000-$4,000 for a PSA 10. Next up is Strike of Neos. This box, in my opinion, sold for way too cheap, and I definitely would have bid on it if I was there. This sold for $1,560. That is criminal. This is a hobby box as well, and this has the chance at Elemental Hero Air Neos. That card is like at least $5,000 in PSA 10. It's very hard to pull, but when you do pull it, it's worth it. At $1,500, in my opinion, is so cheap because this box never pops up for sale. Next up is a lot of blister packs. This includes LOB Unlimited, and then MRD first edition all the way up to IOC first edition. AST first edition blisters I don't believe exist, or I've never seen them, but either way they're extremely rare, so we only include those 10 sets. Now LOB is unlimited because first edition doesn't exist in that blister. This whole 10 blister lot sold for $2,300, and that puts every blister at $230. That's pretty much market price. I personally am not a fan of blisters. I just think that the product integrity will not last in the long term. The glue on the blister itself will fall off and is a mess in my opinion. I just don't like blisters at all. And because of this, that's why I don't really have any in my collection. So yeah, that's pretty much my whole coverage on Heritage Auctions Part 1 and 2. The graded cards as well as the sealed. Overall, I think that the market is stabilizing. I don't think it's going down too much more. However, if it does, it would not surprise me. However, I don't see it going up in the near future. I think prices are stabilizing at around 65% loss from peak. So I think it's a pretty fair evaluation by the market. If you guys enjoyed these in-depth analysis, please hit the like button. Comment down below what your thoughts are on these auctions. Do you think that the market will go down lower, or do you think that it's stabilizing? Subscribe if you want to see more coverage like this. And if you want to support the channel further, I have a Patreon, and you can also use the links in the description to shop. You can pick yourself up your own Gardner binder that I make myself, and it goes towards supporting the channel. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.